Pam Bondi's presence in the Senate hearing room on that gray Thursday morning was far from ordinary. As the session began, Senator Curtis Halbridge of Oregon took the floor, launching into a passionate, theatrical critique of American law enforcement. He painted federal agents and police as pawns of tyranny, claiming they were used by the powerful to manipulate the system for political gain. Halbridge accused the system of systemic bias, federal overreach, and abuse of power, delivering his speech with dramatic pauses and pointed accusations designed to make waves in the media. Everyone in the room, including Pam, anticipated more of the same political grandstanding. But what happened next shifted the entire tone of the hearing. Pam didn't react immediately. She sat in quiet composure, her expression calm, her eyes laser-focused. She had heard these critiques before, but this moment was different. Pam wasn't there to engage in the usual political theatrics. Senator Halbridge, confident in his performance, hadn't anticipated someone standing up to challenge him with the force of lived experience. When Pam finally spoke, her voice was soft yet carried undeniable authority. She didn't raise her voice or make a spectacle of herself. She simply told the truth. Speaking not as a politician, but as someone with over 2 decades of experience in law enforcement and prosecution, she began to dismantle Halbridge's narrative. She made it clear that his broad accusations of law enforcement failed to capture the complexities of the system. She shared the story of Jasmine, a young woman trafficked across 3 states, and how federal agents had worked tirelessly to rescue her. Pam didn't just speak about law enforcement from a distance. She told personal stories of lives impacted by the agents whose work never made headlines but was vital in saving lives and delivering justice. As Pam spoke, the room fell into a heavy silence, with each of her words cutting through theatrics and leaving no space for further political posturing. Pam's delivery wasn't fueled by anger, but by a sense of clarity. She wasn't aiming to attack Halbridge personally. Rather, she sought to expose the flaws in his narrative. She reminded him that his critique of federal law enforcement failed to acknowledge the agents who risk their lives every day on the front lines. She spoke of the undercover officers, those who spent countless hours tracking suspects, returning home exhausted only to start again the next day. Pam wasn't denying the system's flaws. She had seen them firsthand. But what she couldn't accept was a reduction of all law enforcement to a monolith of corruption and tyranny. Her words didn't just challenge Halbridge's narrative. They questioned the broader framing of law enforcement as the enemy. Pam emphasized that true accountability came not from dismantling the system, but from working within it to improve it. She spoke of the sacrifices made by officers who had to make life-altering decisions, often without recognition or reward. She shared her own experiences as Florida's Attorney General, tackling cases that devastated families, and how these cases were solved not by rhetoric, but by the relentless dedication of law enforcement officers who genuinely cared. When Pam said, "I don't stand with your narrative, I stand with the people who do the work," it wasn't just a rejection of Halbridge's words. It was a call to stop reducing everything to political theater. The silence that followed Pam's speech was heavy. Even the reporters, accustomed to the usual back and forth of political hearings, were taken aback. No one had expected Pam to take the floor in this way. Senator Halbridge, who had entered the hearing with confidence in a carefully crafted speech, now found himself flustered, struggling to recover from Pam's well-reasoned, experience-driven response. He tried to regain control, but it was clear that Pam's words had already landed, and the room's tense atmosphere made it evident that the hearing had shifted. Halbridge's smirk had disappeared, replaced by an uncomfortable shift in his seat, his confidence shaken. Outside the Capitol, Pam's words quickly went viral. Clips of her speech spread across social media within minutes, turning her calm but powerful response into a nationwide conversation. #Pam Bondi began trending, with people from both sides of the political spectrum taking notice. The media, initially focused on Halbridge's critique of federal law enforcement, shifted their attention to Pam's powerful rebuttal. Social media exploded with discussions about the real-world impact of law enforcement, and Pam's defense of the people working within it resonated with many who felt their hard work had been overlooked. Despite the frenzy, Pam remained unaffected by the media storm. She hadn't spoken to grab headlines or stir controversy. She had spoken because, for once, someone had stopped pretending and told the truth. When the hearing adjourned, the weight of what had transpired lingered in the room. Pam didn't bask in the aftermath. She didn't linger in the limelight. As she left the hearing room, the gravity of her words still hung in the air. A reporter later described a moment as the cleanest takedown in years. But for Pam, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about ensuring the truth wasn't drowned out by political theater. Later that day, Pam received a message from a retired federal prosecutor in Ohio. "Thank you. You spoke for a lot of us who don't have the microphone anymore." It was a quiet validation, but for Pam, it was enough. She had spoken for the unsung heroes, the ones doing the hard work and making the sacrifices that often went unnoticed. Pam's moment in the Senate didn't end with headlines or applause. It ended with a quiet recognition of something far deeper, something more important than political gain. In a world where politics often overshadow the real issues, Pam Bondi reminded everyone in that room, and everyone watching at home, that the truth still mattered. And sometimes, that truth could shift the entire conversation.